All right, welcome to our week 5 session for English 9B. We are going to be talking about persuasive writing again this week and focusing on a few techniques we can employ in our own persuasive writing. As you listen to the video and watch the video, please make note of the access code as it's spelled out to you. The letters are spread out throughout the video. So as you hear them, write them down so you don't have to go search for them later. And then when you are done with the video, you're going to go to our course and click on quizzes at the top and select the session for week number 5. All right, enjoy that beautiful little kitty cat's face. And if you have any questions about the lesson or need any assistance with this project, please reach out to me via email, portal message, phone call, or text message. All right, here we go. All right, let's get started. Today we're talking about word choice and tone and how they impact persuasive writing. So our objective today is to be able to identify tone and word choice and how they impact persuasive writing. Since we're working on our own persuasive writing essays, this is a super important part or component of persuasive writing, how we develop that tone and that relationship with our audience and how we use word choice to do that. So we're going to go over a couple of essential questions. We're going to talk about the definitions of word choice and the definitions of tone, and we're going to look at some examples of how to interpret both tone and word choice and how they impact persuasive writing in general. So before we do that, I want to give you the first couple letters of your access code. So please write these down. I will give you letters throughout the session, and so write them down so you don't have to go back and look for them later. Your first two letters are P and A, P and A. So write down the letters P and A on a piece of paper near you and keep it handy. All right, so let's talk about our essential questions for today. Our essential questions for today's lesson are: how do you find meaning in word choice, and how do you determine the author's tone through word choice, and then how do we implement this into persuasive writing? So we want to be able to identify when we're reading persuasive text what the word choice means and how it's impacting that text. So let's talk first about this diction and tone. Diction is just a fancy word for word choice. It's like that word that you'll probably hear English teachers use in the future. So I wanted to introduce that term to you, but I'm going to refer to it as word choice in this presentation. But diction is a fancy word for word choice. The words that authors use in their stories, in their informational essays, in their persuasive writing convey meaning. Authors are deliberate when they make decisions about what words to place in their essays or in their narratives. The reason is because tone is impacted by word choice. The tone of a piece or the mood of a piece, the perspective of the piece is developed through that word choice that the author chooses. And a lot of times authors will go back and in the revision process identify words that they want to have be more loaded and be more impactful because of the location in the text or because of the point that they're making with those words. So let's talk about this idea of tone versus mood. Now, tone and mood are not the same thing, and a lot of times we equate them to one another in writing, and they're not the same. So tone is the writer's attitude toward a subject. This is their perspective. What is the author's perspective on the subject? So this is true. We see it not just in informational and persuasive writing, but also in narrative writing. It can be their attitude towards a subject, a character, towards a point they're making in their essay. Tone isn't only what is said, but how it is said, which is why word choice is so helpful, because it develops the tone of a piece. It can be serious, informal, sarcastic, or funny. Mood, so think about when you walk into a room of people, you can kind of sense the mood. Are people sad? Are they happy? Is it a celebration? Are they relaxing? So writers create mood or emotional atmosphere also by choosing their words carefully. The mood is how the text makes the reader feel after reading it. All right, so then how are tone and mood conveyed in writing? Well, tone can be shown through the use of word choices, figures of speech, mood typically through uses of imagery and figurative language, but also words that connect with emotion. The common denominator here is that they use word choice. Word choice is so helpful in conveying both of these elements in our writing. So let's identify, these are just narrative pieces to identify mood. So if we look at this first sentence, the burglar looked furtively around the room as he slowly and carefully climbed through the broken window. For identifying the mood of the piece, we're identifying that the burglar is being careful and he's being very secretive, and obviously he's breaking into somebody's house. But the words furtively shows us that he's up to no good. Slowly and carefully means that he's climbing through a broken window. He doesn't want to hurt himself. The next one, the young child sobbed uncontrollably after her mother dropped her off at kindergarten for her first day. Dropped her off at school for her first day in kindergarten. So the word choice is sobbed uncontrollably. So sobbing is obviously, instead of saying cried, the young child cried after her mother dropped her off at school, doesn't convey the same sadness as sobbed uncontrollably does. All right, the last one. The girls twirled merrily in their costumes as they danced up the driveway in search of candy. Merrily danced, both happy words. They convey a mood of happiness and joy. The boy and his dad cheered wildly and high-fived each other as the time ran out on the game clock. Obviously, extreme excitement, right? They've clearly watched a team that they like and love win something very exciting. All right, so let's look at this connotation versus denotation idea. When we're using word choice, we have to think about the implications that the word choice has on our audience. So a denotative meaning of the word is the literal meaning. What does it say when you look it up in the dictionary? And then the connotative meaning of the word is the emotional feelings a word creates. So when we're writing persuasively and we are trying to persuade other people to our side of the fence, we might use emotionally charged language and loaded words to help make connections between our audience and the topic. Now, obviously, in persuasive writing, we don't want to rely solely on anecdotal evidence. We want to back up our statements with hard, facts and statistics, but we can create an emotional anecdotal experience for our audience utilizing this loaded language. And connotative meanings of words do this for us. So we want to make sure when we're making choices about those words that we're choosing the right ones. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. The word mother, in the dictionary, it states a woman in relation to a child or children to whom she has given birth. That's what the dictionary definition is of the word mother. But what about the connotative meaning of the word mother? For me, I think of a role model, somebody who's affectionate, who's caring, who's given me affection, who I love. So I've developed an emotional attachment, obviously, to my own mother. And so if somebody asks me, how's your mother doing? It doesn't just mean the woman who gave birth to me. It means all these other things too. And then this is my favorite example, the word snake. We look at the word snake. There was a snake in my backyard, or my best friend's boyfriend is a snake. Think about the denotative definition of snake. It's a reptile, right? And it might be a longer definition than that, but if we look at it, we don't have to look it up in the dictionary. We know what an actual snake is. But the connotation of the word snake in sentence number 2, my best friend's boyfriend is a snake. It doesn't mean that he's a reptile crawling around in my backyard. It means that he is doing something that is underhanded. So the connotation of that word indicates to me that the boyfriend is not a good fella. All right, so word choice and mood in persuasive text. We want to look for powerful words that call us to action. We want to look for loaded words that support the argument. And we want to look for language that is respectful. Or we want to use language that is respectful. The one thing that we have to keep in mind when we are writing a persuasive text is that we don't always know exactly who our audience is, but even if we are extremely emotionally charged about our viewpoint on the subject, we want to remember that not every single person we are writing to will agree with us. So we want to make sure that we are using words that are still respectful of those people who might not agree with us. We don't want to turn anybody off, in the first paragraph of our essay from reading further because we have used such emotionally charged language and made that person feel so inferior or unheard that they stop reading. So we want to make sure that we're using powerful words, loaded words, and language that is respectful. All right, I'm going to give you 2 more words in your access code. They are the letter I, and the letter N. So you got 2 letters at the beginning, the letter I and the letter N. Then I'll give you the rest of them in a few minutes. All right, so I am going to switch up because I have something else I want to show you. So I'm going to switch to that, and then we will take a look at some writing, some persuasive writing from an op-ed, and talk about the loaded language and the powerful words in that section. So here we go. Let's take a look at this persuasive text. This is taken from the Times Leader, which is a letter to the editor on whether or not cell phones should be used in classrooms. So we're going to take a look at this for powerful words that call to action, loaded words that support the argument, and language that is respectful. I put that in those little poorly drawn brackets in the middle of the page there. That's what we are going to be looking for. In this very short letter to the editor, this person does use powerful words to help emphasize his or her point and identifies loaded words to support his or her argument. So let's let's take a look at it. Let's read it. And while I read it to you, I'd like you to identify a couple of words that you think are powerful or loaded and that are also respectful in tone to develop that perspective and that tone. All right, here we go. Who doesn't have a cell phone these days? The amazing thing about cell phones is that they are no longer only used for calling or texting. They have become an indispensable thing. Should students be permitted to use cell phones in school? I believe they shouldn't only be permitted to use cell phones, they should be required to use them. Cell phones don't only allow a person to stay connected with family and friends, they also are an excellent learning resource. Students, for instance, can use their smartphones to do research while they are doing group work. There are a lot of great learning websites they can use to supplement the learning in class. People who oppose the use of cell phones in school do it because of the disruptions and distractions that cell phones can cause. However, we must accept that we live in a world of technology and that cell phones are an important and very useful part of this world. We must avoid failing to take advantage of the educational power of the cell phone. Let's make our schools better. Okay, so powerful words that call to action. Call to action is normally the end of an essay or the end of something. And then, so if we look here, let's make our schools better. The call to action is very powerful. Let's make our schools better. This also lends an educational. This also lends an emotional component. As parents, we want our kids to go to good schools. We want our kids to have a good education. We want our schools to be better, right? So that is a loaded. Not only is it powerful, it's also loaded because it calls the reader to action, but also helps support the argument that we all want our kids to have strong educational opportunities. So if we look back up to the top, they start with a rhetorical question. The amazing thing about cell phones is that they are no longer only used for calling or texting. So the word amazing is a pretty good word, right? It identifies that cell phones are positive. The connection between the word amazing and cell phone leads the reader to be like, amazing and cell phone. The correlation is instant. They have become indispensable. Indispensable means that we can't live without it, right? So indispensable is something that we have to have. Students should be permitted to use cell phones should students be permitted to use cell phones in school? Another rhetorical question. I believe they shouldn't only be permitted, they should be required. So again, we're supporting our argument with very specific, powerful words. Required, indispensable, better, amazing. All of these words have positive connotations to them in regards to the subject matter. Cell phones don't only allow a person to stay connected with family and friends, they also are an excellent learning resource. So in the educational world, the word excellent and the idea of a learning resource. Again, we're building our case they support our argument. Loaded words that support our argument. Cell phones are an excellent learning resource. That phrase of words, excellent learning resource, supports our argument, loaded words that we can refer back to for their persuasiveness. Students, for instance, can use their smartphones to do research when they're doing group work. There are a lot of great learning websites they can use to supplement the learning in class. Here we have some evidence-based persuasive technique in conjunction with our excellent learning resource. So this person has used loaded words to support their argument and then backed up those words with examples of how they can be good, positive learning resources. So by taking this loaded word choice and coupling it with his or her reasoning, that makes the argument more powerful. So when you're writing your persuasive argument, think about what your argument is and what your evidence will be, and then use loaded words and powerful words to build into your evidence, to set up your evidence, like a segue. People who oppose the use of cell phones in school do it because of the disruptions and distractions that cell phones can cause. So remember, we've talked a little bit about the elements of persuasive writing, and one of those things is the counterclaim, and this is the counterclaim here. They're identifying the other side of the argument is that cell phones can be disruptive, but they say, however, we must accept that we live in a world of technology and that cell phones are an important and very useful part of this world. So here we go, the word important, the word useful, again, positive connotative words. They are important to use those positive connotations in relationship to your argument because it gives your argument a positive spin. We must avoid failing to take advantage of the educational power of the cell phone. So again, advantage, educational power. So we have the positive connotations of these words associated with the subject matter. So when we identify the different elements of the persuasiveness of this letter to the editor, we can identify the correlation between the use of the word choice and being positive in connotation with the overall tone. The overall tone of the piece of writing is positive, that this person believes that cell phones would have a positive impact, and they've given us specific reasoning as to why cell phones would have a positive impact on the educational learning environment. All right, so what you're going to do now, I'm going to give you your last letter of your access code, and that letter is T. Last letter is T. And you are going to put it at the end of the other letters that you have, and you're going to go to take the quiz, and the quiz is on the quizzes tab in our courses. Click on session for week 5, and you're going to enter that access code in. Remember, no uppercase and no spaces. It's all lowercase letters, no spaces. And your last letter again was T. If you have questions about persuasive writing or about using those loaded words and those powerful words in your own essays, please reach out to me. Thank you so much.